Stone Capital, Mrs. Fiyin Ogunlesi. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a resounding applause. Now, that applause is not applauding. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, we're tired. I'll try as much as possible to be brief. And again, this talk is really just to center on all we've been talking about today, about building and about thinking bold, about acting bold, about being fearless. And so, again, when I was told to come give this talk, I was, again, skeptical, saying, I'm still writing my story, right? What do I have to share? And so, we're learning together in this conversation. And as much as possible, I'll try to keep it brief. So think big, act bold. Still writing the story. One question that I will ask now and I will also ask at the end is, what story will Africa's creative economy be telling in 10 years? And what story will you be telling? And this is important because, again, the creative economy is shaping a number of the activities we see here today. If you could raise your hand, how many content creators are in the room? Okay, I see a few hands. How many people want to, again, be in the creative industry? Whether it's film, music, fashion. We saw one pitch from fashion space. Typically, most pitches you wouldn't find that, but nowadays we're starting to see that happen. I see one hand on the male side. And so this talk is really around my story and, again, how we see things evolving. Okay, seems like there's a glitch, but this slide is really around how my personal story. And so, again, born into a family of entrepreneurs. Anyone that's born into an entrepreneur-based family knows that there are many highs and there are many lows. So again, growing up, it meant that at every point in time, there were at least 3 or 4, 5 businesses running concurrently between both parents. And so what that means is you're constantly, again, in prayer mode, right? It is to succeed. You're constantly thinking, when is the next invoice going to be cleared? And as children, you think children don't see it, but children do see it. And I would say, I think that's where the birth of entrepreneurship was formed. It was really a rhythm in our home, right? So whether it was from trying out in cattle rearing, or having a primary school, or having a community bank on Ring Road in Ibadan, and we're living in Lagos, right? Community bank is the equivalent of like a microfinance bank today. Or when we had a warehouse with what you call gear lock, so security features. So there was a time in Lagos where there was a lot of robbery, right? And so typically if you park your car at a party or outside, you want to use like a gear steering wheel lock, right? And so we had a warehouse full of stuff like that, even up to gear lock, right? So my parents really tried their hands on different things. And that was the kind of household I was born in. And so again, it meant you had to, you knew you were going to fail, you saw people fail, and you saw them rise again. And again, just being bold, knowing that, again, some of the conversations we've had today is knowing that you're going to fail, and knowing that you either sink or swim, and most times you want to swim. And so this slide reminds me again, growing up in that kind of background, going to school, went to university, did my master's. We all knew that what your parents, again, as entrepreneurs, you can't really promise, right? You know that at least I'll give you your education. And so again, getting into the workplace, there are many failures, actually really many failures for me. And again, the story is still being written, and many detours. And so typically my career would be the kind that if you're working in financial services, you typically hear back office, front office. So back office meaning audits, risk, compliance. Front office meaning maybe sales, marketing, the treasury department, investment, right? So constantly I was moving between that region. I started in fund accounting, found my way to compliance, found my way to portfolio management, which meant front office. Transitioned out of that role, went into something else, started from the back office, somewhat back office, where you say investor relations, and then transitioned also into front office, where you're sort of leading the company. And so with all of these detours, there were challenges, there were obstacles. Again, people in the room know that whether you're a recent graduate, whether you're a student, it simply means that it's been done before, it's nothing new. You fail, you rise up again. I remember one of the situations that happened that sort of defined my stay in a particular department, right? So if you work in investments or you work in treasury, you know there's stuff called, again, depending on where monetary policy is, where fiscal policy is, the market changes, right? It moves your bonds, it moves your stocks. I know I'm getting a bit technical, but there's something called fair value, right? You fair value some of the instruments, which means that you're running them at the daily market rate, in some sense. And so I was managing, again, I think I'd lobbied for this position. I was already a portfolio manager anyway, and typically you are assigned different funds. And I'd lobbied, so one of the regulator in the industry had their gratuity fund, and they had assigned that come saying, we want you guys to manage it. And so I'd lobbied that, I want to manage this fund. I was assigned the fund. I was assigned the fund, right? And so it meant, again, huge responsibility. So my boss had given me caveats. You're managing the regulator's fund. You can't afford to lose money. You can't afford to manage it anyhow. You need to be on top of your game. The whole speech, because again, it's the regulator's fund, right? You don't want to be sanctioned for anything whatsoever. And it's really a check on your system whether you're doing the right thing once the regulators sort of entrust you with some of their money. And so that year, again, market was doing well. So when you fair value some of the bonds, in a year where the prices are going up, your bonds are doing well. And then we end the year, we already really had the strategy in the team that, we need to sell down on some of these instruments because once we start the new year, you start on a new pricing. And so, again, outlook for the next year was prices were going to fall. And so for some reason, again, on other portfolios that executed, sold, but this particular instrument was a bond. And was now 10% of the entire portfolio. So it will have been felt, the impact will have been felt. I couldn't sell it, I couldn't exit it, the timing was wrong. And so that bond followed me to the next year in that portfolio. And so of course, getting into the next year, it was in a loss position. We were running on a loss on the regulator's fund, it was crazy. Chaos everywhere. By May of that year, I was already in panic mode. How will I do it? I failed on this in less than, they gave me this portfolio a year ago. It was just chaotic, right? No good, no, again, I guess there's some good ending out of it, right? But in that moment, I knew that it was either I sank or I swam out of it. And so it meant me doing proposals, writing, doing a loss analysis, doing projections, that it made sense for me to sell at a loss, and then also plotting my strategy to recoup the losses back that have been earned, recoup it back, and then make more money for the portfolio. I went back and forth with the investment committee for 4 times. My boss was on my neck. I was just a young portfolio manager, but I felt the heat, right? The regulator, interestingly, had written 2 letters that we see our portfolios losing funds. What is the strategy to sort of reverse it? And so in that moment, it was hard. It was chaotic. Luckily, I had the support of, there was a system in place, I had a boss, and then I moved forward from that. Again, what happened at that was really real lessons, right? I had to swallow in whatever pride it was I had, take the loss, take the consequences that came with the loss, and then find a way to swim. And so again, that has been sort of the trajectory of my career. So again, whether it's an obstacle, whether it's progress, I just knew that I had to move forward. I knew that I had failed. And it's humbling when you know that you failed, right? You're the one saying, buy this instrument, do this, do that, and then you fail, right? And so I failed in a unique way with the regulator. And luckily, because again, with investments, you can justify and explain some of these things. But the most important thing is to find the way forward, the pathway forward. And luckily, I was in a team that helped me with the pathway forward. It simply means, as I'm thinking about it in hindsight, some of those experiences help me connect the dots today. They help me connect the dots in a way that, knowing that there's really nothing that you can do when you fail sometimes. And then it just makes sense for you to rise up again and just swim. You read books from people, billionaires, everyone telling you at some point where they failed, and you just knew that instead of sinking, you had to swim. And so that's really the summary of my story. And I think that, again, with all of those experiences, sort of led me to private investing directly in companies, and again, just learning how to reinvent myself. So whether it's from fund accounting, realizing that there's compliance that is at play as well. In a highly regulated industry, I walked through all the back office roles mostly to sort of find myself in the front office. And so today I run my own fund called Regal Stone. And Regal Stone is a reinvention of all of the experiences that I had. Regal Stone is how we say, it's borders in action. It's not like I haven't failed. It's not like, I wouldn't even say that I'm the all A's kind of student, right? But I'm able to sort of figure out things and try to push, try to swim. And so Regal Stone is an investment advisory business where we're working with creatives. Regal Stone is looking to sort of unlock the creative brilliance we find in African businesses, the creative space. We want to be able to find those SME-like kind of companies and be able to say, these are the companies that will back and will become regional African champions and help to change the narrative for Africa today. And so it's not far-fetched, my story from, again, relating with how Africa's creative economy is today. It's a similar story. It's one of resilience, it's one of reinvention, being able to be put down and stand up again, being able to be in back office and find your way to upskill and find your way to front office if you so desire. I find global relevance. So whether it's Nollywood today, whether it's fashion, Lagos or Paris runways, whether it's Afrobeats, whether it's our gaming studios, this is a story of resilience and reinvention. And so again, it leads me to the most popular case study that I like to share. Maven started in 2012. You probably know them. Started with More Hits. Those that remember More Hits, with the band, One Day Code, transitioned into Maven. Again, with the disintegration of that first group, you would have thought that would be the end, right? But they reinvented themselves, found themselves as Maven, and now they have global stars, Rema, Iron Star. And most recently in 2023, out of the investments that were made in their company, they were able to strike a $200 million deal. Again, figures are all over the place, but over $100 million deal was struck for Maven Records. And so again, they built a scalable Afrobeat platform that targets emerging talents and makes them global stars. Again, it's a story of thinking big. It's a story of turning sound into global exports. It's a story of reinvention. It's a story of resilience. Whether the first team disintegrated and couldn't meet the timing of the markets, but now the second team can. It's a story of keep moving forward. The second case study I would like to share is Film House Group. And it was launched in 2012 as well. So maybe the year 2012 was a good year. There was something about that year. It's now Nigeria's largest cinema. Right, most of the movies we see, they distribute locally, they distribute globally, and now they're building Carver TV, a home-grown streaming platform that's supposed to compete with Netflix and Amazon Prime Video. And basically, it is pioneering film distribution. Another story of being across the market and championing Nollywood's 1 billion plus industry. And so again, it's a story of acting bold in a situation where there was really no distribution system and transforming Nollywood into an industry. And so Africa's growth story for the creative economy is similar. 7% growing annually, and by year 2030 rather, 20 million new jobs would have been unlocked. Nollywood is the second largest film industry. Music, Afrobeats is doing well. Fashion is also pushing. We have food that people are interested in, our music, everything we do, basically. Everyone is intrigued. They want to know what's happening on the continent. And it sort of just makes me, again, I've said a lot, but at least I want to leave you with sort of 3 lessons that I've learned. They're not also isolated wins, whether it's Navy, whether it's Film House, whether it's me trying to find resilience in Nigeria as we know it. I think the first thing is independence is strength. It's good to have an independence of mind. It's important in the workplace, it's important in the business place. But relationships also matter. So you need to be able to, as much as you have independence of mind, you need to be able to manage relationships. Failures help you connect the dots. Don't be afraid to fail. We've all said it in different forms today. It's important that you quickly fail and you quickly stand up. If you're not failing, know that you're playing safe. So you need to fail. If that's something you live here with. And I think the last one will be reinvention is power. The ability to, I guess again, people call it innovate or die, sink or swim, being able to be adaptable. You need to be able to reinvent yourself. With everything changing rapidly, you need to be able to reinvent yourself, not being stuck in the same place. Reinvention is really, really power. And so, again, it leaves me with this. By year 2030, they expected that 2.5 million Nigerians would have jobs in the creative economy. Today, if you're thinking about it, you're probably the people that are going to be employed. Whether it's in film, whether it's in fashion, whether it's in food, animation, most of you will be in the creative economy. Once you leave school, whether you're trying to get jobs now, you will be part of the creative economy. So what are you going to do differently? What bold bets are you making? The question is not just what Africa can create. It's what bold bets you will take on yourself in terms of upskilling, on your ideas, on how you see things. And so, like I said at the start, I'm still writing my story, and so are you. And what story will you be saying in 10 years? Thank you very much.